So drywall work. This is something when I was a new contractor, I had a lot of issues with and was afraid to do. Not so much hanging the drywall, but finishing it. And I used to actually hire a professional drywall finisher to come out and finish 4 or 5 sheets of drywall that I had in the bathroom. And it literally cost me between $800 and $1,000 each time. The materials for this stuff is not very expensive. So it was really a lot of money to lose on every project. Plus, I was reliant on him finishing the project for me to finish the project. That's one thing I definitely don't like as a contractor, is having to rely on others. I like to do everything myself. So I want to show you some tips on drywall finishing that's going to make this easy and stress-free. But just keep in mind, be patient. It takes experience to get good at this, and you'll eventually get the techniques to do it properly, but there is a lot of room for error, and you can always go back and fix anything that you've made a mistake on. So let's get right into it. So the tools that you really need are not really extravagant. You need a mud pan. I'd recommend having a 6-inch knife. I also like having a 12-inch knife and a 16. Now this is going to be for the second coat and getting all those flat seams nice and flat. But to embed the tape, technically all you need is a 6-inch knife and a mud pan. Now I do like having this little roller basically to feed my tape. This makes it easier on long stretches. I can just grab it out of my belt. And this guy just has a little belt loop here. So now I can grab my tape easily. And one thing you'll notice on paper tape, there's a crease. So there's like a little bump on the back that allows you to crease it in half very easily. So that's another main reason I like to use paper tape. But you could just use a 6-inch knife, mud pan, and this, and that's all you need. But they are making some tools that make it really nice and easy. This is called the Tape Buddy from Buddy Tools. So what this is kind of essentially putting the paper tape and embedding mud onto it. That's one thing about mudding, is if you don't have enough mud underneath of the actual tape, that's where you have issues in bubbling up and basically lifting from the existing drywall. And there's really nothing you can do at that point. Once you see those bubbles, you have to cut it out and retape that seam. Not a real big deal if you're a homeowner. Like again, if you had any type of bubble like that, you can fix it, and it takes time. But if you're a contractor, that's hours out of your day to run over there, cut that out, tape it, wait for it to dry. So you're talking about hours of time because of a simple mistake of not having it. And that's one reason that this helps out, because this makes sure that you have the right amount of mud on your tape and you could just seam it. So I'm going to first demonstrate a traditional way where you would just use a 6-inch knife, and then we'll move on to the Tape Buddy and just show you why that's a lot easier. But they also do make other tools with this Tape Buddy. I thought these were really awesome. These are marking guards. So you just put these into your outlets. Has a little indicator that it will bust through the drywall. Makes it really simple. You don't have to measure or mismeasure your outlets. This is also an ingenious idea. This is just a scooper, but it's in the contour of your bucket. So you can scrape out your entire bucket. That gets really cumbersome or difficult with a straight edge. So this is just, the simplest tools make the biggest world of difference. I not only use it for mudding, but I use it when I'm thin setting or anything that I want to scrape out of a bucket, I basically use. And then they have a nice paddle. These paddles are a lot more slender than the traditional type, and this makes it easier to mix smaller buckets. I mean, basically it's universal. It also has this rubber coating on it, which makes it easier to clean. So let's get to it. Now, I do have 2 buckets of mud here. I do highly recommend you use a green lid for taping. So you want to use that because this has a little bit more glue in it and it's better for bonding. And then the +3, this blue lid, this is really nice for basically finish coats. It's really smooth, it's easy to sand, like it's mentioned, and you'll get a good result out of it. You just want to add just a little bit of water. If you're going to use the Tape Buddy, you want to add a bunch more water. So we're going to mix this up slightly for the 6-inch knife first. So it's kind of nice. A normal paddle would not fit in that little small bucket. Okay, so if you're just doing a regular 6-inch knife, just take about a trowel full and just glide this on the ceiling. So you want to just make sure that you don't see any of the drywall. That's going to be the most important thing. And this is where all the mistakes happen, is if you don't have enough mud on the actual drywall. So if there's any area that you're missing or it's too thin, you know, you're going to have a problem with that tape bonding properly. Okay, so then you can just go ahead and crease this. And you just want to basically remove all the excess. Just put full pressure on the joint. Okay, so we'll do the rest with the tape, buddy, but what I want to do is also put the corners on with this thicker mud. So what I like to use for this, I like to use these outside corners that already have the metal corner bead and the tape attached to it. Okay, so here you want to apply a generous amount of mud all the way along that corner. So it's basically the mud that is going to bond this to the wall. So that's why having the green lid is the better mud for this. Now you could just bond this in, just making sure that the corner is even. You could just do that with a knife, but the more efficient way to do this is to use a roller. This roller will make sure that it basically bonds right into that corner very nicely. So I think this is worth having if you're doing a lot of this stuff. Just really squeezes that into the corner nicely. And then just remove the excess. Okay, so for the drywall, buddy, now this does help get the right amount of tape on, or the right amount of mud on your tape. So first thing you need to know is that there's a crease on the back of this. So this folds into the corner. So this is the side that you want the tape or the mud on. It seems like it would be nice and easy just to set this in flat ways and roll out, but then you'd have the mud on the wrong side of the tape. So this actually has to be upside down and then rolled underneath of here. So what we have here is just a simple trough that this paper tape slides through. So sliding through to here and right into the tray. And then this guy goes straight out. So what this is doing is putting the tape in the back of the trough. You fill this with mud, and then when you pull this, you're getting the right amount of mud on the back. So make sure that your roll is indicated properly. So you want to have it like an over roll like this. And so this roll just sits there as you pull the tape. Okay. Now you're going to want to make this a looser mix than what we were using out of the drywall pan. And that's just to ensure that you get everything bonded. The looser the mix is, the better the amount that's going to be on your tape. So we're going to add a little bit more water. So you can see this is a bit looser. So this is a lot looser than what I really want to trowel with. So you are making this basically a pourable application. So I could basically just pour this thing, fill this entire cavity with mud. If you have this kind of a mixture, you'll have success with the right amount of tape on there. sure that's full. So then what you'll be doing is just pulling this out. And as you can see, look at all that mud on the tape. Okay, so now this is designed, has a couple grooves on here to sit on a bucket. So the one thing I would recommend is having this about waist high, or you just don't want to sit this on the floor and be pulling up on the tape, because if you pull up on the tape, you end up scraping off some of the mud. So you need to have this kind of be at whatever level you are to pull this out. And I would recommend having it at waist height. But even if you just did 2 buckets, you know, stack 2 buckets and put that in a room, you should be sufficient. So, but we have this nice little setup here, so we're just gonna pull it out of at this location. So just pull enough out. Now I would recommend only going about 5 feet or whatever your length of span is, and cut this outside of the tool. So just get something that's not going to drag onto the floor. And you can do multiple pieces. You don't have to have one all along seam, and in a lot of ways it's a lot easier just having short pieces like this. So this is basically, you're just going to be folding this right into the corner. And it puts the perfect amount of mud underneath it there. Really no guesswork at that point. Just pull out an arm's length. And just overlap it slightly on the other piece here. It is nice not having to worry about the right amount of mud underneath of this. That is one really painful thing as a contractor, is if you didn't have enough mud underneath the seam and it bubbles up. And sometimes that might not even happen until you go to paint the ceiling, and then all of a sudden you see a bubble. You have to basically cut that section out, re-mud it, repaint it. It takes hours of time. So this really does kind of ensure that you're getting the right amount of mud on your seam. And then anytime you're getting a little low, make sure you pour a little bit more mud on there. You don't want to be pulling out tape that doesn't have enough mud on it. So what's really awesome, I think, about this too, is just these little pieces. You have just the perfect amount. I can just touch up any area that I messed up, like this, fit this outlet right here. So this is really helpful in just little tiny patches like this. Make sure it's all even. Because then you'll be able to feather out everything in the same width. Same here, I got a mess up right here. Not a big deal. Drywall is very forgiving. So I just cover up my holes like it never happened. So as far as the screws, I just like to do a slide pattern across 2 screws. So I prefer doing a slide versus a skip, because these motions are easier to finish than it is to just pitter patter. That takes care of the mudding first coat. And that tomorrow, I mean, you could pretty much wait about 5 hours and be able to put the second coat on. You just want to make sure everything's dry before you do it. But hopefully some of those tips helped you out. Check out the link below. I got a discount for you on the buddy tool if you're interested. Definitely helps out, but definitely not necessary either. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.